too.
Yeah, they just sent out details regarding the arrangements today.
Okay.
I know.
Here he comes. Well, as soon as he sits down. You realize it's winter.
I realize that it's winter, Bob. Do you realize you've never seen me in long pants? Let's not go there.
Hell, it freezes over when that happens.
Let's go ahead and call the Planning Commission meeting of February 9 to order. Roll call, please. God,
Here.
it's loud.
Here.
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 Oh, public hearing to which nobody is attending, but that's okay. Mr. Schneider. Oh, you're moving on us now.
What's that?
Making me look right now. Okay.
We're trying to give everyone the full Monty on the video camera. Mr. Chairman, this is a zoning text amendment to address a resolution by the council to differentiate the zoning administrator as a separate entity from the town council. Last month, we went through, and I mean, I have a copy in your packet. I can give it
We
to
do not.
you. This is essentially those edits that you looked at last month, or are the same edits that you reviewed last month in terms of interchanging.
So everything is edited.
Yes.
I'll just do it the easy way then. I'll open the public hearing for, we don't have a ZTA number on this, do we?
We do not.
For the zoning text amendments for the zoning administrator, invite anyone who wishes to come and speak in favor or in opposition to please step forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Announcements. I have none today. Mr. Ring?
None.
None. None. Minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from January 13th, 2015, Planning Commission meeting.
Aye, second.
All in favor? Aye. Votes unanimous. ARB update.
No, nothing particularly germane to the Planning Commission.
Council update?
We put forward the resolution about the power lines that you all did a lot of work on, and just waiting to see where all that goes. So the council was very appreciative of the work the Planning Commission did.
Just doing her job. All righty. New business, BZA appointments. Since the mayor and Councilman Passanello are here, this will save me the trouble of putting it in writing. I was asked why I wanted to discuss this. I just wanted to point out to council, have the Planning Commission as a whole point out to council, that one of the provisions under the BZA ordinance provides for there being a Planning Commission member on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and there's a reason for that, and that's so that there's some continuity between the actions of the town and an understanding of the underlying ordinances. It's there as an aid to the BZA, and it provides them with support in addition to any legal support that may be provided by the town in terms of a legal presence by a lawyer. But it ties everything together, and it gives them a framework or a working understanding of the ordinances that the average citizen who sits on the BZA is not going to have. And what I would like is some motion of support. I mean, is anybody up here besides Ralph of any inclination to apply for the vacant BZA slot? Me, no.
Time permitting, not at this time.
You can't, and you're prevented.
Yeah.
So I would just, if it's the feeling of the planning commission, I would just like an endorsement of Ralph's reappointment for just those reasons. You know. No objection?
Not from me, certainly, no.
You're
More than willing to
you're
say
informed, and it saves me the trouble of writing a message or a memo or whatever. All right. Parking ordinance study and associated zoning text amendments. I just want to double check these real quick. Suggest everybody else do that real quick.
Yeah, I'm working through it.
The ad that was advertised did it by section, each of the relevant sections. Those that were outside the original purview, as mentioned last month, had to do with changing the review period of the historic district, the Architecture Review Board. That was from 15 days to 60 days to coincide with the Planning Commission's review. And that is on page 4, section 58-558. We also went through and switched out those references from the council to appropriately the building official. And then the last unrelated to that was the last section, section 58-716, with regards to sidewalks and lighting. We'd had some issues before when making specific references to color and other sorts of things where those colors are no longer provided commercially. So, and that's reflected on page 6.
Are they producing this color, or are they just painted once they're received by the manufacturer?
I'm sorry, say that
The
again?
coloring that you're referring to?
Turn this down.
It's a real fine balance. Because if you step away just an inch or two more, you get out of zone and range of the microphone. It's really weird. I had to adjust that.
So the Hanover Forge green, you're indicating that is no longer available in terms of a color or style?
No, the Martin Seymour Market Square Dark Green Tavern Green. So
Okay.
before that was, whoa, it's getting sensitive. Holly Montague, our engineer, said this is a more readily available lighting style. It's done on a 17-inch base rather than a 24-inch base. To be honest with you, eventually we're going to move to a facility standards manual where we don't have this sort of specificity. But this gave enough flexibility. I believe we had one developer that had a hard time finding Martin Seymour Market Square Dark Green Tavern W85-06250. So.
Would it be wise to keep that in place until all the colorings of the lightings in town have been replaced fully? This way it doesn't fall out of compliance right away? Or is that not relevant?
I think it's unnecessary. I can certainly carry yours forward. I think the challenge we're having now is the old lights are faded.
Yeah.
And the new lights are that color. So I think regardless, it's to be one that
Okay.
meets that Hanover Forest green or the equivalent. So,
All right, does anybody have any issues with the text as amended?
None.
Matt? Ralph? Okay. In that case, I would move that we forward the amendments to Section 38-1, 58-222, 58-263, 58-304, 58-339, 58-340, 58-342, 58-345, 58-346, 58-467, 58-506, 58-509, 58-510, 58-513, 58-554, 58-555, 58-558, 58-560, 58-600, 58-706, 58-709, 58-710, 58-716, and 58-717.
and 58-726.
Oh, and 58-7 25-726, collectively the zoning text amendments regarding the zoning administrator to the town council with a recommendation for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, call for the vote. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay. Comp plan.
Still on hold.
Okay. 1 mile notices. Do you have anything new? Because I do.
I don't tonight, but certainly whatever you,
Several years ago, there was an application, there were several applications for additional residential areas on Old Carolina. Briarton, Old Carolina, Route 15. Briarton Estates, Woodburn Estates, no, it's Briarton Estates 2, Woodburn Estates, a couple of others, all of which died shortly after the town objected to the densities involved. The Briarton Estates was brought back under another name. I think it's Dominion Hunt several months ago. It should be on the county DAP schedule. And as Briarton Estates has come back from the dead, so too has Woodbourne. This time under the name Woodbourne Estates. I'm assuming we haven't gotten a 1 mile notice on it.
no, we had the one that, from last month, that was on Haymarket Drive,
Yeah.
but I have not received any additional
Could
notices.
you get a hold of Chris over at the planning office and get some information? I'll double check the names. I think
This is Dominion Hunt,
Dominion Hunt is one, and Woodburn Estates is the
Woodburn
other.
Estates, and you had something about Briarton.
It used to be, Dominion Hunt used to be Briarton. It's one of these things where they keep changing the names and
Okay.
bringing them back after sitting on the DAP schedule for 8 to 10 years.
And where's this at?
Dominion Hunt is at the corner of Thoroughfare and 15. And Woodburn Estates is at the corner of Old Carolina and Thoroughfare, I think. I was just going off what they had on the DAP schedule and it really,
So over by the new elementary school, over,
one's over by the new elementary school and the other one is going to be just southwest of Somerset.
okay.
And the one on the corner of Thoroughfare and 15, that will be on the west side, because the east side is UVA, isn't it?
No, it'll be on the east side.
Oh, UVA is
that-
by
there's that-
Haymarket Drive, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's, well, Thoroughfare and Haymarket bound serve as the outer boundaries for UVA.
So you'd like me to come back basically just with a status update, where they are, and I guess if it's subject to
I'd
our
like
1 mile
I'd
review
like a set of the plans personally.
submission, okay.
He doesn't have to do anything elaborate. He can send them electronically like they usually do.
Okay.
We don't need full scale, I don't think.
I can do that.
Okay. Parking ordinance, where do we stand?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, we did not have it available this evening. That was my fault for not asking it. Last time we left it with you, you had 3 questions you had charged me with. One was dealing with accessory apartments as mandated by the state, or the granny pods.
Yeah.
If you made reference to, so we would make a change to the definition of apartment, which will change to from being solely an attached facility to a portion of a structure designed as a dwelling unit or ancillary to the principal use of the structure. Martin had changed that to means a dwelling unit, whether attached or detached from the main unit.
There we
that is
go.
ancillary to the.
Yeah, the detached being important because you have to, you're not in concordance with the state code unless you've got that in there.
The other one we had listed, what is going on? Excuse me. We had listed 3 different standards for commercial uses, retail stores, a standard for shopping centers, and for personal uses. I had suggested we combine those into one standard, but when I went back through the ordinance, unfortunately, we referred to commercial uses in 3 separate ways. So we'll need to keep them in. The last issue you would suggest I visit was, or I had offered to visit, was a parking in lieu fee. Remember this? Sound
Yeah.
familiar? And I said I was going to go back and look at the CIP to see if we had even had a line item that would accept funds for that. We do in the CIP have a line item for a municipal parking plan and implementation, earmarked with $15,000. So what I would suggest is that maybe we'll redefine that policy, come back to you, and if we have to amend the ordinance accordingly, we'll do it at that time. So I will not suggest you incorporate as part of this ZTA a specific requirement or statement on a policy for parking in lieu of.
So you're going to strike that section?
Correct. Well, actually, we never had it because we didn't have a policy for it. But I was going to suggest that as part of the ZTA, you forward a recommendation to the council that they create a policy or an approach to doing municipal parking, but I need to do a little more homework before we do that. And then lastly, we had, the consultant had struck a provision for off-site parking. I think that was left off unintentionally. Right now, you can either park on-site or within 500 feet of the principal use. I would think we would want to continue to have that as part of the ordinance, especially with some of our businesses that front Washington Street.
I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah. So for instance, the old bank building here on the corner, they have a zero lot line. They're built out fully. So they use the parking lot 2 doors down next to the BB&T for off-site parking. So I would think we would want to keep that revision in there. So if you are comfortable with making these 3 changes, that is changing the definition of accessory apartments, keeping the commercial standards for parking as was in the parking consultant's recommendation based on how we list uses in the code, and then 3, re-including the provision for off-site parking, consistent with the standard we have today.
You guys want to see them again, or just kick it to a hearing?
Yeah, I'm fine with a hearing. I'm fine with going to a hearing. We've seen it.
So yeah, you'll see these changes as part of your packet for next month, and when it's advertised, those changes will be in play before it goes for advertising. So,
If there's no objection, I'll direct the clerk to publish the amendments upon receipt from Mr. Schneider for a public hearing on, and I can't, that helps if I put the right glasses on. We'll be looking at the 9th? Yeah, for March 9. That takes care of that. Anything else, Mr. Schneider?
next month, you're likely to see Robinson's Paradise. This is a rezoning that's north of town. They've submitted their final edits. They have a proffer statement that goes with it. They have a proffer statement, number of elements, but anyway, that'll come to you for scheduling of a public hearing. So the manner with which we normally do these things, it'll be on your agenda. You'll review the package of information. You'll have your dialogue with the applicant, make any suggested revisions, and then publish it for hearing the following month. So,
Assuming it's conditioned to publish.
correct. So Holly and I have to basically give it our final blessing before it comes to you, because there's a number of edits that the applicant had made in response to our comments, but that needs to be in final form before it can get on your agenda. So assuming all those fall in place, it'll be before you next month.
All fees paid, all,
Yes. So, proffer policies as well. Are most of you familiar with proffer policies? Okay, those are your unit contributions for various services that both we and the county provide. The county attorney, or the town attorney, excuse me, had done some research on some of the recent land use cases regarding takings and other elements of proffered improvement. So they basically drafted a resolution for the council to adopt a proffer policy based on the county's proffer policies, where they went through and extrapolated dollar amounts based on certain demographics of the county. And so what they had asked staff to do is extrapolate our, I'm not using the right terms, but basically take our population density and match it to the proportions that are derived out of the county's policies. So it's going to take a little bit of legwork. So we expect to bring that to you next month for you to look at, and then we'll schedule a public hearing as necessary. So
you'll have a comparative table on that?
correct.
Okay.
And so the idea is that one of the interesting things is that because we don't provide schools, we don't build our roads, and the other is going to be an interesting policy to create.
Well, that hasn't been an issue.
It hasn't been an issue in the past.
We-
We've danced
Well-
that legal
Give it to a
line
PTO.
before, yeah.
Yeah.
That legal line has been danced
I think our
before.
operative word is passed, and some of the state and federal laws have changed. And so we want to make sure that we're minding our
Comport with
P's
those.
and doing our
Okay.
Q's. And a lot of that is derived out of your CIP as well. So we'll have a draft, a policy, proper policy for you to review next month and make recommendations on, and have the council officially adopt. So I did get the Sheets application back in. This is the special use permit for the service station. The ARB did approve that reconstruction, I believe it was 2 months ago,
Yeah.
about a month or so ago. So we'll bring that forward to you fairly soon. We're still reviewing the ice rink expansion, also reviewing Payne Lane, which is across the street. That's the redevelopment of that site. So as I keep promising you, it's going to be a busy spring as a lot of these applications wrap up. The ARB did look at, I'm sorry to trump you, Commissioner Ring.
And they already asked me, I had forgotten about that, but I was going to ask about the 5 houses that face blight in terms of the proffers. We did look at the remainder of that development, which is going to be 5 houses fronting blight.
Second phase of Villages of Haymarket.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any proffers with that, would there?
No, but the discussion during the ARB was what was the restrictions placed or development standards that were applied to that. So the applicant had offered, more or less a proffer, to reestablish the landscape buffer for those units that are existing along the backside of the Harover. There was a number of plantings that were supposed to go in and either were not put in or were taken out.
That was part of the compromise, I thought, for their.
That, exactly. Also along the Blight Drive side where these 5 units would go, there's also enhanced plantings on the town's
town's
side
property,
that they
correct,
agreed to
yeah.
do and provide those plantings, and that's to be done. There is a sidewalk along Blight Drive as part of that. They've also dedicated right-of-way for the future streetscape once we develop those later phases. They didn't want to build a sidewalk to nowhere, along Washington Street, either having a connection across the street at Pace West or having one on the Harover, but they at least accommodated the right-of-way for that.
Shelter or a bus shelter.
They were going to
something,
do,
as
they
I
were going to do
recall.
kind of a safe haven for a bus shelter, so people that are waiting for the bus can sit, or not standing on the road. There's a safe area for them to stand. There's also, I think, some questions about landscaping along Blight.
What they did when they, and essentially they just gave us the elevations of the houses. Really is all it was. But these things go, they are tight on those lots. There is no spare space on
Yeah.
those lots at all. And there is going to be no space, and that's why when we're talking about the buffer is going to be on town property, because there's no space on the back of those properties for
I remember
screening.
this.
So what type of
Yeah.
buffer are they gonna do?
Like 50 foot or something like that?
No, it's plantings.
I'm saying like evergreens, or
Yeah, it's a mixture of evergreens and deciduous trees.
are they gonna do that along the backside of the Harover with the existing homes too?
Correct.
Yeah.
So there was
It's gonna be
those,
on town property.
correct.
Right.
Because there's,
So-
yeah,
Well, there's no room behind our
Zero.
house to do it.
Yeah.
So that should have been done in the first place.
Correct. In hindsight, there was a requirement for a common buffer yard that went across people's individual lots. And the way it played out was, Mr. Caudill, do you have one of those lots that actually face the back?
All right, I look right back into the food pantry.
So you may have experienced this then, where the walkout from their basement more or less puts you in that, there's a 10-foot setback from the back of the property line to the back of the house. And we have a situation where walkouts are in that 10-foot buffer, and you're also supposed to do a number of plantings that are in there. But to fully implement the walkout and all the plantings that were required, you'd have no use of the backyard. So how that situation arrived, the past is the past, but we went to address that as part of the second phase. And that was, okay, there is a requirement. It's unlikely that either could survive or be a usable buffer along those that are along the backside. So they've offered to basically replace those plantings with an equivalent planting with evergreens along the north side. And then the side along Blight, they agreed to do something very similar to match. And then I want to say, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but there was something that spoke to them not encroaching that 15-foot buffer yard on their side.
What the ARB had suggested was to put a fence, since there is no, like in Green Hill Crossing, up against the railroad tracks, it's a 10 or 15-foot
Right.
buffer that belongs to the homeowners association. It's mostly ignored, but it does belong to the homeowners association. Here, with these 5 homes, there's no space to do that.
Yeah, there's
I
nothing.
mean, you'd be right up on the back door. That's, again, why, if they'll pay for the plantings, but they've got to be on town property.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it comes down to. What the ARB wanted, actually, was a fence along the back line.
It's a little late for that, because that's a profit, that's a,
Well, no, I think this, what they
that
were
was a
doing is
condition
the,
approval, wasn't it?
Well, but again, we're just looking at the elevation, that's all. We're not looking at anything else. They expressed a preference for a fence.
What I'm saying is of requiring a fence at this point on a conditioned approval that's already on the books, and then coming in and creating another,
well, I don't think the ARB was suggesting that, or was the applicant suggesting that the fence would replace the landscaping? I don't think that was it. I think they're wanting to demarcate
who's pushing the fence, the ARB or the applicant?
the developer of the 5 houses.
Or the developer wants the fence?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So it's not,
What's that?
I thought that was the
you two are confusing me.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the one I was listening to when I was driving here. I thought that they had wanted to create I think that, I remember the architect was saying we wanted to create kind of that unified plan, but the way the shared use driveways, not shared use driveways, but the way the opposing driveways on Blight, you'd have like 5 feet of fencing, a huge gap, 5 feet of fencing, and a huge gap.
Put fencing in the front.
Correct.
We're talking about fencing in the back.
Okay, I was thinking
That's
in the
kind of a
front.
buffer. No, fencing in the front would make no sense. Yeah.
This is, so the ARB wants fencing on the back lot line between their backyard and the Hariver property, correct?
Yes.
And the applicant has said what about this?
The architect was, again, we're only looking at the elevations, that's all. They didn't have a site plan, they just brought in some perspective lines, and essentially what we came to is, you got a Craftsman house back here, make your design more craftsman-like.
Okay.
So,
I think part of the reason probably having the fence is there was a hard time demarcating between their property and the town property.
right.
And didn't we have this long, involved discussion about this at the time that their
We did,
their
so-
site plan was approved?
Correct. So I don't think the fence is necessarily incorrect. It may help demarcate where
Yeah.
those are and create,
Well, also, their concern was you're going to have these, the concern was you do something nice in the front, like a brick front, not necessarily a brick front, but then you have siding in the back. And since that is, you're going to see the back of those houses, long way down, you're going to see those back of the houses. So put something so that you don't see the vinyl siding, whatever it is.
breaks up the
Yeah.
materials.
My point being, I think this is where we're getting confused here. It's got an approved site plan, so at the end of the day, if they don't want to put it up.
Oh, yeah, I don't get the impression the ARB was mandating that. I think
Oh,
that was
okay.
a suggestion on
That
how
was,
to.
that was the impression I got.
They expressed a preference for
Okay,
it.
okay.
What was happening was you basically have a finger of houses that are jutting out, and I think the idea was to create a architecture and a scale and massing that matches what around. Otherwise, you're going to have these things, and because you're on the corner there, you're going to be able to see all sides of it. So part of the discussion was creating either 3-sided or 4-sided architecture, so you're not, the example I gave is if you drive along Heathcote, going toward Cadharpin, there's, is it Piedmont Mews or one of those, you'll see when you're driving along the backside of those houses, they have brick on the back, brick on the front, and then siding on the sides. And trying to hide, that brick was trying to hide the siding, and it makes it actually kind of worse. So they gave some direction to the developer to try to reduce the scale and massing. What was interesting is, I think the gentleman that came in saying, well, they were frustrated with the size of the lots and what they could get out of it. And that was the insistence of the developer, that they get a larger number of lots, and so it was kind of a self-imposed restriction on that. It seemed to suggest that the town had imposed that on them, and that wasn't the case.
Well, they're going to look like the row of townhomes in the middle of nowhere on the backside.
Yes, it
of
is.
66.
Yeah.
It's just, they're their own little community.
Has you're going to have to refresh my memory on this because, quite frankly, I've forgotten. Has the stormwater issue already been taken care of?
No, it's to be addressed
To be
through.
addressed at construction?
Correct.
Okay. And that covers those last three houses on,
Corner of Blight and I'm forgetting the cross street, Dogwood Drive, Dogwood Park Lane.
so that will be handled at construction, so
Correct.
hopefully the flooding problems will be done once and for all.
Those at the
See.
corner, yeah. Those that are coming off the town side down into your properties is different. There's a swale right behind the house at the corner of Dogwood Lane and Blight. And a lot of these new houses were going to drain back in that general area. And so they were required to address that as part of their development.
They're going to have to redo the slope. Is that right? No, they're going to re-swale it away from the garage, right? Or funnel it down from the garage?
It had a lot to do
Still
with
not-
grading and redoing the swale and stuff.
Still not convinced it's going to work, but it's better than nothing.
Marcel, what's the timeline on all this?
They didn't say at the meeting what schedule that they had. Do you remember one, Ralph? Did they say when they wanted to build?
They didn't say when they were coming back, but, I mean, this was 5 houses, the guy did, when we said try and make them more craftsman-like, they already had the pitches and all that kind of stuff, it was very compatible with that request, so they shouldn't have a problem with coming back with a new design.
So last month wasn't an official application. They were
Right.
just wanting
No,
to
it's
kind of
just a
pitch the
discussion.
concept before they went down too far down one particular angle.
Yeah.
So we did meet with the consultant or the engineering firm that's developing the master plan for this site. That was based, do you remember, so maybe familiar, we did 3 master plan concepts for the site, which deals with stormwater runoff, parking, facade treatments are a later improvement. So the engineer came forward with a plan that can more or less took all the major elements out of those 3 concepts. They're designing it, and that will come before you as a formal application in the next few months. It'll go through its normal process. Holly and I will review it, provide comments on it, and then it'll get packaged up and it'll come to you for review and recommendation. So even though it's a town application, we're treating it like we would treat any other site plan. So that does deal with treatments along Old Carolina. That would also accommodate a center turn lane on Old Carolina Road going southbound. We've also spoke with the Payne Lane development folks on the south side to see would they accommodate a receiving lane. So basically similar in fashion to what we've done out here on the eastbound lane through town.
Clock tower went away?
What's that?
The clock tower went away?
No, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But we have a meeting next week to talk about the mechanics of making that work to receive the lane. So it also ties in with the trail improvements that are coming off the bridge. It's part of we call it the Connolly money that came in. So it also kind of creates kind of a unified space so we can use it for multi-purpose if we need to. So that'll be coming back to you soon. Next Friday as well, there was a consultant that was doing the master planning for the Hariver properties based on the comp plan recommendations. So they're going to pitch 3 concepts which involve scenarios which incorporate the houses, other scenarios which you move around maybe the houses, or a concept that doesn't use the houses at all, and also other concepts in terms of recreation and other things on the property. So they're going to make their pitch. They're going to have some community meetings. I assume at some point they'll come to you as well and come up with their final recommendation for the council to use if they choose to decide whether or not they want to put money in a future CIP to execute that master plan. So likely to be in phases where you kind of do an earlier phase, kind of low-hanging fruit, to use it as a more defined public space, and then later on decide if we want to reuse those buildings for some other purpose. So that's in the works. Signs, we had the signs consultant come through last fall and meet with a lot of the stakeholders. I've not heard from them recently, although I think Brian's reached out to them. Same thing as the parking study. They're going to submit their final assessment, recommended language for a new sign ordinance, and that'll come to you for recommendations and whether or not you want to adopt or amend the ordinance accordingly. So I think we put a challenge to them when they realized that the west end of town is much different than the center of town. So I think that stumped them to take a little more time and thought than they had originally expected. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Thanks.
Anything else by anybody else? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we're done. That was fast.